Hello and welcome. I'm Clarisse Fortuné. You're watching Eye on Africa on France 24. Our top stories. The end of an era fast approaching for the ANC. After 30 years in power in South Africa, the party is on course for its worst ever performance. Coalition talks will soon begin. Kenya is conducting the first public hearings into alleged abuses committed by British soldiers stationed in the country. Young people fighting for a better planet will go first to DR Congo, where the rainforest is at risk, then to Kenya, where building a wall may be the answer to a cleaner world. South Africa's ruling ANC is on track to score its worst electoral result ever. With counting over in most of voting districts, the ANC's share of the vote is now standing at just over 41%. So it is clear that the party stands no chance of crossing the magical 50% mark to win an outright majority in parliament. Earlier, I spoke to our correspondent Anne Wenzel, who's been covering from Cape Town.
So coalition talks all round. It's definitely, it's an inevitable fact of life at this point. In the second place, we have the Democratic Alliance, which is our official opposition, and they're the only party to have ever taken a province away from the ANC. Short explainer, South Africa is split into 9 provinces, and each province is run by a premier. And the DA won the Western Cape by by majority vote in that province in 2009, and they've hung onto the province ever since. They will continue to do so. So they're in good spirits. I bumped into the premier of the Western Cape province at the IEC Centre in Cape Town, and that was at about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock this evening, and he said to me, look, it's basically over. It just needs to be officialized, and they're in good spirits. And he says he's still going strong on adrenaline. He's wide awake and he's waiting, for all the official results to be in. But that's where they are. And the MK has come in third at the moment, and they're going really, really strongly.
Yeah, I was going to say the MK, which is, to remind our viewers, is Jacob Zuma's new party. So yes, they did, it looks like they did surprisingly well.
They did. The ANC themselves, Nomvula Mokonyane, commented on the fact of how far ahead they were, KZN province, the MKs rather, in KZN province. Of course, Jacob Zuma's stronghold and the base ground for the MK party. But they're really way ahead, and so they probably are going to share power with a smaller party in KZN. It's unlikely that they will share with the ANC.
For the first time in Kenya, a parliamentary commission is conducting public hearings into the conduct of British soldiers stationed in Kenya. In the Laikipia and Samburu counties, thousands of residents are denouncing abuses ranging from land destructions to murder and mutilations. Bastien Renouille and Maria Gerth report.
After years of complaints, their voices are finally being heard. On Thursday, about 1,000 Kenyans living near a British military base gathered in front of this parliamentary commission to tell their stories of abuse.
The Soccerless Asuyan took what he thought was just some small piece of metal on the ground and started playing with it. It ended up detonating. It gouged out his 2 eyes. What he has here are prosthetic eyes. He lost his both arms.
Victims are asking for compensation and speak about injuries, rapes, and damaged land.
What we'll be looking at is ethical breaches, there's human rights abuse, and general integrity of the officers who operate here from the British Army.
They then head to the capital of the Laikipia County. On the road, the cars pass the British military base. Following a deal signed in 1964, British troops are stationed in Kenya for training purposes. Here, too, the complaints are numerous. This young woman wrote a letter to her aunt, Agnes Wanjiru, found dead in a hotel's septic tank in 2012. The family accuses a British soldier.
In November 2021, the Sunday Times reported on your murder, and that's when we discovered the prime suspect, Soldier X, had already been sent back to Britain.
No one here is questioning the British military presence. It's the impunity that's angering people. The army says its soldiers have diplomatic immunity, but for the county's attorney, this goes against the deal signed between the two countries.
If you read it, you will find that they are subject to our constitution as long as they are present within the country. There is supposed to be an intergovernmental liaison committee, 2 representatives from the Batuk and 2 representatives from the Kenya Army. However, now that has never been implemented.
The British Embassy said it intends to cooperate with the inquiry. The Committee on National Security has yet to announce when it will publish its conclusions.
Now to Uganda, where the United States has imposed a new wave of sanctions on prominent political figures, including the Speaker of Parliament. They accuse 5 high-ranking dignitaries of corruption and human rights violation. Clément Diroma reports from neighboring Rwanda's capital, Kigali.
The Speaker of the Ugandan Parliament and 4 other senior officials will no longer be able to travel to the US following a new series of sanctions announced by Washington this week. Anita Among is a close associate of President Yoweri Museveni and is suspected of misusing state resources intended for communities in need. She's also at the center of a local corruption investigation. Among claims to be the victim of a witch hunt since her stance in favor of an anti-homosexuality law, one of the most repressive in the world, enforced by authorities last year. Since then, NGOs have reported hundreds of cases of LGBTQ+ rights violations. Washington had already announced at the beginning of the year the suspension of a trade agreement with Uganda because of this law. Also sanctioned by the US is the former deputy chief of the Ugandan army, accused of extrajudicial executions in 2016 during a military operation. The Ugandan government asserts that the American decision is unfair and reminds that the officials are presumed innocent until potentially convicted in their country.
Sierra Leone once again faces a fuel shortage. For over 2 weeks, petrol stations have been running low in the capital Freetown and the rest of the country. The authorities deny any shortages, and yet gas stations remain closed due to a lack of supply. More from our correspondents.
In Freetown, motorcyclists and keke or tuk-tuk drivers are forced to buy their fuel on the informal market. 1 litre costs about 40,000 leones, a little less than €2 and 30% more than usual. At the end of last week, authorities assured drivers there was no shortage of fuel. However, gas stations across the capital in Freetown remain closed this week due to lack of supply. And drivers are starting to lose patience.
Now, fuel crisis is too much in Sierra Leone. So now we try to talking to government, say, Papa government, please, let's try to assist me to getting the fuel in the country.
Even to see a liter of fuel is not easy, because now look at the fuel station, all of them are closed. No fuel, no fuel, no fuel.
Increased petrol prices have a direct impact on the price of transport and goods in an already difficult economic situation, as inflation remained above 40% throughout the last few months.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, youngsters are meeting with governments and scientists to discuss efforts to protect the Congo Basin rainforest. The meeting comes ahead of a huge conference which begins next week. Emmett Livingston in Kinshasa has more.
About 150 young environmentalists from Central Africa and Europe gathered in Kinshasa on Friday, hoping to pressure the governments of the Congo Basin to do more to protect the rainforest. The Congo Basin, which spans 6 countries, is home to the second largest rainforest in the world. It's also one of the planet's major carbon sinks. But environmental threats, including logging and oil exploration, are piling up. Young people want to make sure that governments are listening to their concerns.
There's a real urgency because I think that the international agenda has to push this question of preserving the forests of the Congo Basin forward. Other countries have regional groupings, so this is also the moment for young people to get to know one another, to be able to put efficient working groups together for the next COPs, and also to put pressure on the different governments and to tell them that we're a young generation that asserts itself and we wish for more projects to be put on the table and that we should be included in discussing the projects. We're not just young people to take photos of, we're beyond that as well.
The exchange between the young activists and decision makers comes just ahead of a major rainforest conference taking place in Kinshasa. The Congo Basin Forest Partnership, an organization which unites governments, donors, and scientists, is due to meet in the Congolese capital next week. Several challenges and potential solutions will be discussed. Congo's government, for example, has worried environmentalists by opening up parts of the jungle to oil exploration. But the government is also hoping to drum up investments in carbon credits, which it says can protect the forest. The Democratic Republic of Congo holds 60% of the Congo Basin rainforest, and so the decisions that it makes are pivotal.
And meanwhile, children from the Dandora High School in Nairobi are trying to build a green wall between their school and a dump site to purify the air. Air pollution is a silent danger, killing millions of people worldwide every year. By planting bamboo trees, the students are trying to clean the air that surrounds them. Clémence Valère tells their story.
Armed with hoses and bamboo seedlings, these Kenyan students aim to give a breath of fresh air to their neighborhood. Located east of Nairobi, the Dandora Secondary School can be found next to the country's largest dump site. The dump was declared full 23 years ago, yet hundreds of trucks still drive in daily to heap in more waste.
The dump site produces gas in the morning and also in the afternoon. Some of the challenges that really affect us is the smell coming out from the dump site. The smoke, burning of those elements in there really produces spokes that also triggers asthma.
Air pollution represents a significant threat. According to the World Health Organization, it kills around 7 million people globally every year. WHO data also shows that 99% of the global population breathe air that exceeds the organization's guideline limits and contains high levels of pollutants.
The impacts of air pollution to all parts of our bodies, including our brains, our organs, including our lungs, actually impact on even children before they are born. Planting bamboo trees ensures that there is a barrier that is provided in terms of the air that is polluted coming through, especially when you look at the fine particles.
The project was launched last year by the high school principal, Eutychus Maina, after he noted the high amount of respiratory illnesses in students and teachers. Relying on public donations, the goal is to ensure that the entire 900-meter area that separates the school and the dump site is covered by bamboo trees. So far, more than 4,000 trees of different species have been planted.
A bit of hope there to end this edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching.
I do have more elections behind me than ahead of me.
This will be my first.
I've never taken democracy for granted.
And neither will I.
I've seen big changes in Europe start with voting.
I want my vote to start more.
That is the beauty of democracy.
It's about what we decide.
Together.